Hello, everyone. It's Lindsay Landry, and today I have a very special guest with me, Lori Henderson. Hi.
Hi, Lindsay.
And we're going to be having a Rise Together sacred conversation, which I'm really excited about this conversation because I asked Lori to come talk with me today about the sacredness of play. And I we've been, I guess our paths have been weaving the past 10 years. Um, I met Lori when I got back from Kripalu, and she was holding these women's circles, and she was just being initiated into her medicine journey. And recently, the past few years, she's been holding these codes around play and divine appointments, and really returning back to your childhood essence. And yeah, I feel like that's so important right now. And so I asked her to come and talk with me about it. So um, I want to tell you a little bit about her, and then we will dive into the conversation. So Lori comes from a traditional Western model of healing. And before that, she worked for 20 years in cardiac ultrasound. So she was in corporate, and then she began her healing journey. And she spent 10 years walking the way of the medicine woman and artist, the last 10 years. And this all began when she walked the 730-kilometer pilgrimage of the de Santiago in 2010. And that's when she heard the call of the divine feminine spirits of Peru. And she began her remembering and studying the ancient teachings of the Incas shamans through the lineage. Do you want to say the name of the lineage you were studying with?
The high Caro people of the high Indian mountains of Peru.
Yes. And so
I
she,
got initiated as a Humpy Kamayuk
yeah.
after 7 years. I'm helping Lindsay with the vocabulary because Quechua is a hard language. And I'm not saying I know it, but yeah.
I told her before we
Humpy
started I might need some help with
and
pronunciation. Yeah, which, is really an honor that she was able to do this and to receive the teachings, because they don't give these teachings to just anyone. And so this was a big honor for her to be able to receive this and to um, be blessed, as a medicine woman, which happened in 2016. And since then, she's been sharing her medicine as an artist, a healer, a mentor, the earth keeper. She's also a grandmother, a weaver of life, and of water. So so much goodness.
thank you so much. So good to be here with you.
Yes. And so before we start, is there anything else you want to share about yourself or your journey?
No, I think you kind of, covered it. I wanted to have like that little bit of a conversation about um, the initiation or the teaching that I got. It came with a lot of ancient knowledge,
Mhm.
but the teachers that I had from Peru and from North America, they never gave an answer.
Mm.
They only asked a question. And that's like a really big thing right now into this, like, I'm like getting to this knowledge where I've been sitting with it for 10 years. And sometimes it takes a little while for it to sink in. But if we all asked questions and became like that childlike curiosity, we might get some new answers that are not in our past history of our brains. And so I think that in this initiation, they gave a lot of connection, a lot of experiences for connection, but they never, they never gave you, this is the teachings and you're down here, like, the guru, like what the old traditional guru is. And the guru really means, the embodiment of light, or the person that sheds light. So that's kind of like what I feel like, just this year, 2020, it was like, whoa. So
Mm.
that's the thing I wanted to stress the most in this initiation was, um, for everyone that's listening, it's about asking more questions.
Mm.
So if I were to get maybe like, I had a lot of years of asking, I'd have to ask a question and then 20 more questions from that first question. And from that, the divine appointments kind of answer, because your intuition starts to turn on and you start to get something that's not from your past programs, and you start to go into, so yeah, that's what I wanted to kind of bring up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially, as we're in this time of uncertainty. And also, just being in a society where we often look to see, like, how do we do it? Or how, what is the way? And, if we continue to go down that path, we create the things that have already been created. And so, yeah, when we ask the question, we can open to something new.
Yeah.
I
And then,
actually, last year, um, I began really like this quote close inquiry with what I call the dark goddess, but is also, it could be seen as like the darker feminine, where, we have the light feminine, where usually that's easier for us to connect to. But then the dark goddess or the dark feminine is sort of I really like to look at nature, as that force where um, there's death and there's destruction. And I can remember very vividly, still, when I went to your house. I think it was in 2014 or 2015, and I had just taught one of my Reiki classes, and I was having this huge vulnerability hangover and all these emotions. And you had told me, you were like, look outside, nature is messy, and the mud and the water, it's how the seeds are planted. And that really deeply impacted me. And so last year I found myself really circling back to that. And yeah, so even these things that we see as destructive, getting really curious and opening to the question and letting myself be the student of what was appearing, rather than feeling like it was something I needed to like overcome or dominate.
yeah, that is interesting, because I've been taking, since in the last 6 months, I've been taking a deep dive into the esoterics and the spells, or the language that
Mm.
we use. And it's been with Secret Energy. Seven Bomar is an amazing mentor that I've taken on for the last 6 months. And he really got me into this really clear understanding. He says understanding instead of understanding, because that is under your consciousness. I want to understand it. So everything in the body, every single thing in my body is as um, as above, so below, but as in, as out. So
Mm.
what's in here is out there. So this whole system is working in this perfect harmony, bringing in all of these like questions that I'm asking myself, like where is this knowledge? Where is this knowledge? It's in the questions that I ask and in the systems that nature has to hold. So
Mm.
there's all of these answers that come in, and then in this toroidal energy field that we're made of, that we have this physical body, a light body, we have our emotional body, we have, like, a concrete mind that kind of gets us from point A to point B in this physical reality. And then we have these other etheric bodies that are outside of our body.
Mhm.
And that was my, part of my teachings. But what I'm really, got to was that there's two sides of this world that we're living in. There's a daytime world and a nighttime world. And the dark goddess is as light, because
Mhm.
all colors go into black and all colors are in white. It is the goddess that had been taken underground in this culture and has been demonized or whatever, and that is this divine feminine that births creation.
Mhm.
It's like, whoa, what have we done to turn her upside down? So if you looked at the star, the star shape, that is like a point on the top, a head, 2 arms and 2 feet. That's like a star. But if they invert the star, it becomes a satanic thing, doesn't it?
Mm.
But Venus and her transit in the night sky is the divine feminine, and she's waking up right now and saying, oh, no more, I do not consent to that. I will take this darkness and I will make creation from this darkness, because that's where the seed and the fertilization of the seed becomes new life.
Mhm.
Women birth to life. Where did we give our power? That has been, that's a good question, isn't it?
Mhm.
So I'm going to be always kind of maybe like ask yourself the question, where have you given your power? And I think 2020 now is this time that we can see that there's a lot of external stuff going on about power. And so I'd like, to deep dive into that conversation of like, how free do you feel? Are you sourcing from joy? Are you sourcing from fear? Where are your controls? Where are the patterns that are running? Like, where does that come from? Does it even come from you?
Mhm.
Is it your mom or your grandmother, or even it could be in your DNA from ancestors 7 generations previous. So there's all of this work that we're being required to like lighten up, take our shell off, lighten up, and become more playful. So
I
and
a few weeks ago, so like we'll just use nature as like a little reference here. So a few weeks ago, it was actually the Libra, I guess it was the Libra full moon. We were having like all these amazing interactions with nature, eagles, fish, all these like sweet things. I found a baby turtle. And then the Libra full moon sort of like brought this different energy for us. But it was interesting because, I don't respond to like scary things the same way I used to. So first we saw this snake that was like jumping, and then it was like kind of in protection mode, alert mode. And so I'm like, interesting. And then the next day we saw an alligator, and it was a really big alligator, and it actually jumped off the land and it started swimming towards us, and it was like in protection mode. And then it did this thing with its head and its tail, and it slapped its head down. And I was like, oh my God, it's like totally in protection territory mode, right? And so we get these two signs, and then we got these little kittens that showed up. And they're scared. They're like hungry. They are, wanting attention. They're wanting nourishment, but they're scared. And so they were kind of hissing, and so I'm taking all these little notes from the interactions I'm receiving, and the little kittens have been showing me and teaching me, and um, they've been teaching me how to be still, and also they respond to play. So one of the ways you get them to leave their survival mechanisms, right? Because we all are ingrained with these, like, we don't look at an alligator trying to protect its territory as something wrong per se, but it's like an ingrained pattern. And so
yeah,
the kittens are showing me, right? They grew up, I guess, wild, and so they have these survival mechanisms. And as I play with them and really just be patient and present with them, they then get curious about me, and they're more willing to play with me and open to me.
That is such an interesting and divine insight, because basically nature, and we're part of nature, but we've forgotten our place in nature, but like an innate knowledge of the alligator. Now, you did not judge the alligator for doing this, because it's their young. It's like it's their time of breeding right now. It's like they have babies.
Yeah, we're
And
in their land. I'm in
right.
their space.
And this is like this innate knowledge that animals are born with. Like they're born with this, like baby animals can get up and fend for themselves pretty much, pretty quick. Humans need like 18 years of like programming in order for them to go out on their own. And so you can see where and yet you took that knowledge of nature and didn't judge it. You
Hmm.
looked at it and said, wow, but look at us, what we do to each other. When
Yeah.
someone's in, especially as a healer, you're like thinking that you have the answers for this person, that you haven't even gotten to the place where they're like this scared animal, where you're not judging them for doing these things that they're doing. And that's what I wanted to like bring up, another thing about this toroidal energy field. It's really a figure eight. And
Mm.
there's a light, like a negative part of this curve, or like like maybe in the north south, positive, negative. The sun is positive, the earth is negative. There's what you would say is a negative force, would be something that you wouldn't want to look at, a dark kind of angry energy. But
Mhm.
it's all part of the whole. In a duality universe, it's part of the whole. So how do we get and not be triggered by human nature, when the animal nature you kind of totally get, you
Mhm.
understand that. And that I was thinking, that sacred play of the kitten is like, that's how you get your essence out. Like if you're not going to be able to help a person by telling them they shouldn't be fearful.
Right.
Right. It's our animal nature to be fearful.
Or
It's
that
like
they shouldn't be in protection mode or
right.
alert mode.
I mean, there's so many people, and if you look at in the Peruvian cosmology, the lower kite, where it's like a kite-like energy, is in your intestines, and if you looked at the intestines, that's shaped like a snake.
Mm.
So we have all the animals inside of us. All the animal archetypes are inside of us. So this fear is a natural fight or flight inside our human body. There's reptilian energy, there's
Mhm.
snake energy, and then you have, cat energy, which is the kitten, or jaguar energy, which is like if you watched a cat or a jaguar, it's going to feed, and that's the utmost love when they're killing their prey, and that prey is like contracted. This is love. And then there's this place where they just can lick themselves and be, sitting in the sun. They're not worrying about nothing, and they're just
Mhm.
so chilled. But this is the plane that we live on, the Kaipacha plane. And then we have the bird brain, our pineal gland, or our higher vision aspect, and that's the eagle condor. So in that Peruvian cosmology, really embracing all these animal totems, or even the nature's messages, it's like if you're calm enough, you can kind of integrate it like you just did. And I think that's like one of the keys, to sitting in nature and being part of it, not scared of it. A
Mhm.
lot of people are scared of it. It's that respect. Oh, it's spring, the alligators are going to be out there with their babies, and that because you grew up here. So it was a good lesson.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, so I know you've been on this journey of like opening more to play, and I have too the past I would say 2 to 3 years. Um but before that, or even, at the beginning of my journey opening to play, like what I noticed um is that I had a lot of protections, and I also had a lot of um, we can call them stories or wiring patterns around really feeling like if I allowed myself to fully open to play, like I was going to be punished.
Wow.
And it goes back to, you know, one of my childhood experiences where my parents were divorced, and when I was with my dad, often we would play. We would play, and you know, I sort of took on, I guess, some of the buffer between my mom and dad's relationship, because then I would come home and she was sort of resentful of him. And so then I would feel that resentment and I felt like I did something wrong. And so then it was like I was sort of punishing myself, you know, like it wasn't safe, you know, for me to fully open. And so I know, you know, for myself, it was, I sort of had to like work through those layers before I could really get to the place of this safety. I don't know if you want to, it feels like the safety is important. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that. Like, um, the space, like having a safe space for ourselves to get to that opening.
Well, it's interesting. I think that we're all gifted these experiences in our life that are our biggest medicine. So you're describing that as your biggest medicine of like finding these places where you got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get safe enough to turn yourself back on? And so my story is a little different than your story, and everyone that we'll meet has a little bit different in their story of this. But I think the key to the story is your vulnerability. I think your power is in your vulnerability. And again, I'm going to, break the paradigm. If the teacher's coming in that says it has all the answers, is not being vulnerable, I'm like, bye-bye. Because, really the power is in the teacher sharing their vulnerability. And even in the moment when you realize that you might have bypassed something, because basically everyone wants to feel safe, right? So one of our core instincts is like belonging, and that's why I named my thing Reclaimed Belonging. And then when I got to this place where it mattered so much that I belonged to a tribe, and then it went to my family wound, like where did I feel like I didn't belong? And that was where I didn't feel safe. So I named the very thing that I wanted, and when someone I was working with called it, I was trying to reclaim other people's baggage, like I was like the unclaimed baggage. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. If I hadn't looked at that, I would not have seen that I was looking to reclaim my own belonging to self.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take every single pattern or program where I did not feel good enough. So that story of you had this amazing time with your dad, you were playing, and you came into this energy that wasn't yours, but you thought it was about you.
Totally.
It was really about them. And then you thought, well, just me having a good time was not okay, but it was really, your parents and what they were trying to deal with that they weren't, adept enough to do. So in my own discoveries about how do I make myself feel safe, it's really like it's this extreme self-love
Mm-hmm.
and extreme vulnerability to get there and make some mistakes and and laugh about it, just have a sense of humor, because I was always waiting to be perfect, or I was going to do it right, I was going to present it right, and it was like I never felt good enough. And so was I going to wait till I'm dead until I'm good enough, right? So it's like that play has to come where you don't care what people think at all anymore. So that susceptibility piece comes in, and that, it ties into that. I had this magnetism test as I was getting ready to, it was about a year before we got initiated. Maybe it was 2 years. I can't remember exactly, but she did the shaman in Peru did this magnetism test, and mine came up with I had a susceptibility issue. So I was susceptible to what you thought of me.
Hmm.
And so therefore I couldn't do a divine appointment because I was trying to do something else that you liked.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like I was inauthentic. I was very authentic, but I still cared.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's this key to this lock, to unlock your own childhood thing. It's like I had an older sister. She was very dominating, and I wanted to please her because she was like really cool. And I wanted to be part of her tribe, which she really did include me in her tribe, so many ways that an older sister didn't normally for 5.5 years older. But I became more of a chameleon in, you know, and so then I was like, well, no, I have to get sovereign. I can't care if you like my art, if you like the way I dress, or even what I have as far as my out there experiences, because I've had a lot of out there,
Mm-hmm.
like um, otherworldly experience, so to say. So when I cared about what people thought about me, maybe I wouldn't tell them that. Even if the divine said, say this,
Right.
I would know they're going to think I'm a little crazy or out there. But 2020, I let it all go,
Mm.
all. And then I'm like not susceptible to anyone else's opinion about me. And, you know, it goes to that. Really, I just did that sovereignty. I did this sovereignty statement, and I did it publicly on Facebook. And it was like, that really was the last hurdle
Mm-hmm.
to get over safety. Like, what are you afraid? What's the worst thing
Right.
that can happen? You're going to die?
Well, me and the healer that I've been working with, we have this conversation because she'll ask me the questions, and she's like, we go into protection, like we're protecting our essence, and she's like, is it really even possible that it could get damaged?
No, unless you give it the power outside of yourself to damage.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's fascinating these ways that we sort of like want to keep ourselves safe and
It's like what Rumi said. It's like the open secret.
mhm.
The fact that you think that you can keep yourself safe when everyone sees your essence and already knows that, it's that you care what other people think is the primary thing that you're actually doing to yourself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, or I know a big one for me too has been so I know that my openness activates people in a certain way, and then I would almost try to like manage the activation or tend it, right? So like if it activates them to where they feel sad, then I'm like trying to tend the sadness. Like I don't want them to feel sad, or I don't want them to feel pain, or whatever, right? And so I think there's ways that we kind of do that too, where we like get so in ourselves, then we see the power that we hold, like you said, like this vulnerability, this power, and then we become like a little scared of our own power.
absolutely. And then it kind of like when before we started recording, we were talking about there's these themes that go on in our lives, and they're kind of like a continuous theme of maybe I came in to this university to have this experience,
Yeah.
that I can have this experience as this avatar, and then I can say, well, I've had this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, and now I'm seeing that everyone's experience is so valid for them. I do not want to remove anyone from their experience anymore, where I would always want people to feel better as the empathic person, as the middle child in a family that was very, I was trying to make peace all the time. I was like this peacemaker in the family. And I heard that kind of same, like a similar thing, that you were like a person that went between two worlds.
Totally.
And didn't want people to, feel like bad, so you were like monitoring that. And I think our job is like, if you're a catalyst, or if you're a person that is here for a new earth experience, it's that we have to give everyone validation for where they are. So if they're having a total freaking hissy fit, I'm like, yay! And there's the play, because it's not about me. I could be the reason they're seeing it and having a total shit fit on, oh, sorry, but anyhow, it's aimed at me. And, and then I really want to get into this because, people have these core relationships. So as a daughter, my mother one was a big one. And now I'm a grandmother to a 42-year-old daughter who has 10 beautiful children. And so where does my daughter and my relationship with the grandchildren, the most valuable, like precious little jewel, stop me from being who I am? And that's the biggest gift. So like, if I'm trying to hold any special relationships, I am not doing my divine appointment. I mean, it comes down to something very, very simple, but I don't believe in special relationships. And that's some teachings from the Course in Miracles. But if you believe that everyone is the spark of the Creator, then everything you're doing is that kind of light enhancing thing. Whether someone's having an reaction because you're too shiny, because you should be very sad right now. You should be horrified about what's going on. You should be really in fear right now. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that. And we're having these real extreme contrasts, and everyone's experience is so different and valid.
Yeah. So do you want to say a little bit more about the divine appointments and what those are, and when?
First, I'd like to, yes, I would love to give, I always like to give credit to the person who gave me that expression is Becky Williams from Pack and Paddle.
Oh.
Now, I did the Camino de Santiago in 2010. Oh no, I don't know what it was. No, I started my journey to Peru in 2010. It must have been 2009. I went on the Camino, and she asked me to do a talk because, they're so into the hiking thing, and they did the Appalachian Trail and stuff, but they had never heard about the Camino. And so I did a talk at Pack and Paddle. And then Becky got inspired and walked the Camino. And she's the one that came back and gave me the experience of that. She prayed, like, I don't know if it was praying, but she was hiking and saying, what is my divine appointment today? And this is really relevant to today and now, because anyone that has ever walked the Camino, that's kind of what we're on right now. Everyone is having a Camino experience. But when you're on the Camino, you have a little backpack and you're walking from one place to another place, and everyone's walking, and sometimes you see the same people, but sometimes some people walk faster and then they'll walk slower, and you might catch up with them eventually, but you're having your own unique experience, but you're on it together. So she gave that to me, and I thought, well, like, I'm going to use that in my life. If I'm in balance in my vibrations, then I'm going to see that whoever I'm meeting on this path is going to give me another crumb for me to go to the next place. Now, I'm not saying a divine appointment is always a great thing. Some of them are extremely like, oh my God, I don't want to look at that about me.
Right.
But they're all, in a way, if you're awake, divine. So I started doing this divine appointment thing, and then it's taken me, like, I had a van that I lived in the summer, and I would ask, where's this divine appointment? And sometimes I would put something on Facebook, and someone would invite me to their location. And then I would do what I do, and they would do what they did, and we'd have this transformational experience. And then I'd move on to the next, and to the next, and the next. And I've been doing that for like 3-4 years now. And this year I sold the van, but I'm still planning on doing divine appointments. I don't know. See, like when you asked me to do this, this is a divine appointment. So when I put this out there, who knows who will call me? And then I'll be asked to do another thing, another thing, another thing. And that's how I'm informed into my next action. I'm informed by, does this bring me the highest joy? And doing this kind of talking like this is a high joy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And with somebody I love so much like you, Lindsay, it's like, whoa, this is actually a sacred play and the most joy, and it's a divine appointment. So it kind of aligns to what my, mission on the planet is.
Yeah, I love it. I've been playing around with the divine appointments, but I've had some that ended up a little bumpy. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting when like sometimes you mentioned like just having to be okay with whatever you're asked to do. And for me, this past year, like there's a part of me that's been emerging where it's like I'm being asked to speak in a way that I haven't always felt comfortable doing. So it might be naming something or saying that doesn't really work for me.
Yes,
And
powerful.
yeah, so it's interesting. I'm still willing, but
Recently I had we're in this kind of in between time. We're about to maybe go out. And I had to like kind of check myself, where are you? And I'm like, not quite ready to go out, um, because this has been such a powerful time and a integrating my gifts and my ability to be really clear. I don't have, that stuff that I had before this happened is not, it's clear. But I can see that if I get kind of out there, that maybe I'm going to be out of integrity.
mm,
So somebody was coming over that had been exposed to a lot of different people, and I've not really been exposed, but I'm not in any fear. Like if I were something over here, I would do it maybe for someone else, but not really for me. So, but I was saying, do I want to hug this person? Do I want to mix my energy? Even though I love this person very much, I did not want to mix my energy. And it had nothing to do with fear. It was
mhm,
like, I'm really liking not mixing my energy right now. I'm
mm,
really loving being in this high integrity, like connection with self, so that I can say, no, I don't feel comfortable with that, you know? And and it's not about the other person. It's just about, you know, what I am willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So it might make people uncomfortable if I'm not going along with what they think it needs to go along with, but that also is a divine appointment,
yeah,
because things that are going to go and not align with my it's like I think we're having a bifurcation of frequencies right now. And so the things that are going to go down this way that maybe I was involved with before are going to just clear out, and I'm not going to be involved in it because I'm not going to go into that belief system.
right.
And then I'll be brought into this other thing that I'll be like, oh, that resonates, that feels joyful, that feels like something I want to participate in. But
Mhm,
before, I was trying to make it happen. I was trying to bring the vibration that I came on the planet with and get people excited about it, and come on, like join the team. And it was wearing me out.
yeah,
So I'm not doing that. And and I have this like unbounded energy. So I don't know if that answered the question.
now it does.
Okay.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So something that was coming forward, I remember when we were having the conversation before we started recording, you mentioned the visionary. Do you want to talk about that? Because how you're a visionary, but you said your vision is there's like a change or a shift that's happening with it?
Yeah, I've always been a person that could like see things ahead of time. Um, Even when I started living in my van like 6 years ago, I mean, people weren't doing that. Now it's like the hip thing to do. So it's like I've always had that. And that's not like to say it's an ego thing, but when you're a little ahead of schedule, um, you kind of don't know how you fit in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I never, I saw how I went through my initiation and how I didn't ever go for a teacher-student relationship. So the divine feminine spirits of Peru called me forth, and I got initiated with all of this knowledge and information and ceremonies that hadn't been done in 500 years. And I mean, it was just so amazing and overwhelming and a beautiful container. I was so excited to get people to come and learn with me. But I knew I couldn't do it, this teacher student thing. So I couldn't figure out how to get it out there, And that's why I started doing the moon ceremony, the new moon women's group. And everyone would come there, and it would like, I would have to be leading it all the time. And I was like, wait a second, I don't really believe in this. I don't believe, I believe we all have an innate gift. And my job is to see what it is and bring it out. Like it's not going to be what mine is. I know that, and I don't want it to be like mine because it would be so boring. So about 2 years ago, I was out doing a divine appointment when one of this book arrived into my hands, and it was the Co-Creator's Handbook. And it was like, oh, this is the vision. And it comes from Barbara Marx Hubbard, who was the visionary, like that just transitioned off the planet, Barbara Marx Hubbard. And it comes as, I don't know from her, but she totally endorsed it. And I got it. I was like, this is how we have to be able to do it like the women did it, which was holding circle with each other. And it was about bringing out each person's essence. So if a person has this kind of essence and they're vibrating here, maybe they have some kind of light language. Mm-hmm. I have a visionary, artistic, I do sound stuff, and I do my energy is a certain way. I might have you have a different frequency.
Yeah, you hold a lot of frequency activations, I think.
Yes. And then there's another person with a different frequency that maybe is a drummer, So anyhow, I started this co-creation group. This just like, I don't know, 8 months ago. And it was like the timing of it, to think about holding circles of light, holding these connections like a spider web would hold connections, or a grid. We're going to be grid keepers, or mobile cities of light. I love Ken Carey. He talks about mobile cities of light. And if you think about you activating as a mobile city, I mean, I'm doing this work by not even meeting anyone or seeing anyone. It's like, it's a 10-mile radius around here of what I've been activating in the frequency. And so that's kind of like this vision. The vision has always been, the teacher student is over. Mm-hmm. It's over. It's not that we do not hold space, and I offer sessions for people to come into that have energy rebalancing, but there isn't anything missing in anybody that I have to teach them. It's about remembering. And so that's like the primary vision is, for me, is to acknowledge that each person has this divine essence. They have a unique gift. They might have some patterns or programs that are running that are keeping their frequencies low. So there's about really acknowledging that, working with them, maybe mentoring them through, some time. It takes some time to acknowledge that, or be able to even go into the depths of the deep grief that you feel from having not acknowledged it. And then coming into this new way of being in relationship. So in my visionary process, I changed all the ways I'm in relationship. And one of them is in this marriage that that is this divine, uh, it's a playground for getting us both to be sovereign in a way that people do not even like kind of understand how you can be so free in a relationship. But basically I've have that kind of love for this person and he has that for me, that we do not put any limits or rules on each other for our sovereignty of our spirit's highest potential. So that is my visionary thing that I have to offer people, is that I've done it. We're like, been doing it. Now I think we're there where people are ready to step into sovereignty. So
Mhm.
2020 is really getting your eyes really cleared off, seeing where you've given your power away. The victim, rescuer, persecutor triangle is done. And if you're playing victim, or you're trying to rescue people, or you're persecuting them because they're not doing what you want them to do, it's done. It's finished. And that means in all relationships, from mother-child, female, male, female, male, any relationship. It's like, if it's a lifting and gifting, I'm going to lift and gift you. And that's this high level energy exchange that I've always been talking about. But it's like, it's not my worth, it's my exchange. So
It's interesting. I was just having this conversation with a friend a couple days ago, and we were talking about our desire for those types of connections and those relationships, and the lift and gift, right? Where we're like literally, rising together.
right, we're rising together. Yeah.
And that was my vision for these conversations, because I'm like, God, we really need to come together. Like, I've been struggling with words the past 6 months. Like, I haven't had the best articulation of the things that I'm feeling in my beingness, but I know when I need to do something, even if I don't have the words, I'm like, the energy will speak for itself, right? But what I was just thinking what came to me when you were talking, so I know for myself, I've sort of, part of me is like trying to figure out this new way of navigating, like, okay, so we're not doing the old thing. Structures are always a thing for me. Like, I'm good at structures. Like, it's been an identity. I'm a rule follower. Like, I'm really great at it. So when I'm learning something new, it can be kind of, part of my system is still looking for a way, like the line, like right, wrong, how, is this right? Is this wrong? Like, what is the thing? Um, so I've noticed, I've had some of these clumsy sort of interactions where it can feel like, well, we're not rising together, right? Because like they're not on board. And when you were speaking, what I was really getting was, even if the other person isn't on board and it doesn't seem to my eyes, or to my brain, my ego, that they're like helping me, they are.
Yes. Yes. That's like a really key one,
Like,
because
they're still giving me the opportunity to rise, right? So even if
well,
they're not
that
rising, I still
that
have the opportunity.
yeah, because basically it's this time to come out of judgment. So you have to come out of judgment about yourself, and like you have to identify, yeah, I like structure. So you set yourself up structure, but you don't take structure and give it to everyone else. Or
Mm-hmm.
you don't take the structure that was imposed on you, like, because right now Saturn is having a breakdown of structure in a global astrology way, right? So the way that those control structures, you see what's going on on the macro. So we're having different breakdowns of Saturn, and how Saturn has, this is Saturday. What we know, I did that thing on Saturday. You watched me do this thing about breaking we're breaking the paradigm of how Saturn has kept us in a rule oriented and the divine feminine kind of locked down. So we're having this breakthrough. Doesn't mean that we don't need structure. We all need structure. but we're going to be coming up with a new type of structure, and it hasn't been found yet. So it's going to be found with all of us rising up as individual seeds of light, little mobile cities of light. And some people are going to be taking a bonding by complaining role, and that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that we're not rising. It means that I acknowledge their part in the rising,
Mm-hmm.
and that I don't judge them for being there. Some people are going to be going, if you think about vibrations, and there's this mountain that we climb to go into higher vibrations. We come out of the physical realm and we go into this, pure mind consciousness, which is the Christ consciousness, or into our intuition, or the divine will, which is the divine appointment. You're coming into these, but first you have to deal with these lower worlds, right? And we're in the lower worlds all the time. We're balancing the duality. So we're on this wave. The moon brings in the number 2. It's this divine frequency. And in the full moon, we get totally manic. And in the new moon, we're going to plant our new seeds, and we're getting we have this kind of quiet time. And anywhere in between, we're letting go, we're bringing in, we're letting go, we're bringing in. And our job is not to make it emotional and get all excited about how other people are acting or doing, and getting ourselves off balance. We have to drop a little bit lower into the water and get the information, and have your little tiller on your boat, and you're ready to steer your own frequency, irregardless of what the other people are doing, because they're helping you by their contrast. Their contrast is helping us get to center point. So it's never going to be, for me, about anyone else. I will never blame anyone else for my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as a whatever, a humpy kamayak, a medicine woman, whether, I don't really, I used to care about getting seen or getting my message out. I know that the divine has it in the divine plan. And so I'm not even into that much structure right now. I'm into let the new structure be formed, and let me be of service first to myself, then to others, as I do this, the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
Most important that everyone's really, it's never about someone else doing something so I can get comfortable. I'm not saying that you're doing that. I'm not saying anyone's doing that. I'm just saying that we all have an opportunity to know our divine mission is to find balance and wholeness within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might have an opportunity to assist someone, but it could be that very assistance could be this worst case scenario where someone loses it on Facebook at you or something.
It doesn't always, that's kind of like the dark goddess, right? It's not always what we see as pretty. Sometimes it's messy, but it really gives us this opportunity to ground and embody what my experience of working with the dark goddess is. It's really allowed me to embody my light and embody these, my ability. I'm still opening to play, but I feel myself embodying it in such a deeper way, where it's not, it's in me rather than just something around me, or the frequency outside of me. It's actually coming down in, in my body. So
yeah, because it's something that the essence, the essence is your essence.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more playful than others. So not even to judge how your play shows up, or what your sense of humor is, or any of that shoulding and what comparing and contrasting to another's essence is, I know that's my biggest lesson, for me, by the not feeling good enough, I would look at someone and go, I'd be jealous, why can't I be seen? And, what is it about me that's not, getting what this external, and I think that, as a medicine person, thank God I didn't get famous. I mean, I would have been
Right.
ego. It would have been ego for me. I would have like been like so serious, it's like, about, whatever that is. Cause when I was doing my initiation, I always wanted to do it right. Get
Mhm.
the ceremonies down, like take the best notes. And then,
And there's like absolutely no, everyone is so different. There's no way to get it right.
and then I was like, and then if I had gotten like, something happened and I would have been, maybe had, this large following or something, I would have been so much pressure to keep
Right.
up ego persona. And I'm thinking, my heart goes out to these big spiritual teachers that are gonna, have a dark,
Our goddess awakening.
yeah.
It's so funny because, you were talking about you and your husband, your relationship. And it's so funny because me and James, like, I feel like I actually had this experience recently where I was seeing our lifetimes together and I was seeing how he does that for me. Like, he really cracks my ego in certain ways because of love, right? Not out of a hard, like, but one of the things his essence does, which was how that whole alligator thing happened, he always likes to go to the edge and then a little bit past the edge where he can see, so like he likes to go to the edge and then go past it. And he likes to push edges. Like, that's just part of who he is. And, I used to really struggle with this. And I've learned to really love it and to like play. And then also there's moments where, I like some structure. So when we do things, like sometimes I like to do it similar. And he rather is just like do it totally different. And so it kind of like you're saying with the ceremonies, like there's just when I'm like finding, like he won't let me find a groove, but it's good because it keeps me in connection to the divine, right?
Yes. I was thinking, like people always like, they would say, well, what's the difference between a ritual and a ceremony? And then if you always want to be in your groove, like if you want to follow that, that would be like what, I think the vocabulary is interchangeable, but there's one that you would go and it would be like a Catholic
Mass.
church ceremony, mass, right? So you're going to have this, and then you have this, then you have this, da, 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 da. And I prefer to be in the other one where I empty out, I have a loose structure, and then I allow the divine to inform where we go next. And that's a little scarier one. That's more of an edgy one because it's never two rituals will be the same, but they'll definitely be in alignment if you're out of the way. So I think there is like this, it's for me, the most joy is in the most unstructured in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have the opposite too, because my partner's always like, his name's Tom, and he's
He'll
a
do the
tender.
opposite thing for each
He's
other.
a tender. He loves to tend everything and do everything the same. This, and I used to feel bad because I don't want to tend so much. I want to have a new experience, and so even in this lockdown experience, we're going to different places, and then he'll say, "Oh, we should do this every week." And I'm like, no, I don't want to do anything every week. I'm not saying that you're like that, but like, it's good that we have
Totally.
not, so we've worked it out, that we appreciate each other and no one's trying to change or judge the other person. But I had this dark night of the soul. It was on Easter Sunday. I had no internet. I was like, and he was doing all these really nice things.
Oh.
He has such a soft heart. He was texting or messaging all these people, and I was just like, you're just so nice, and I was not feeling so nice. And I'm like, I think I have to be by myself with this. But I started laughing hysterical because I saw how many places I had looked at him and thought he had been doing it wrong. because
Mm.
he's not as adventurous as I am. He's not as spiritually seeking as me. He's not like at all like me. But the divine put him in my life
Mhm.
for that very expression of what I was talking about. There's a piece for this frequency and a piece for this frequency, and are all part of the whole. And if you get off of not liking yourself and where you're comparing yourself, you can actually kind of be in honor of this person and how they are. And that I think in this lockdown you'll see there's going to be people that are going to be like even in more divine partnership, and people that are going to blame and shame, and they're out of there. I'm
Mm.
not saying that that would be the only reason you're out of there, but there's also, you know, all these other experiences, or people that were abusers or even more abusive, and like people are in these relationships. So that is the biggest, you know, tool for my evolution, is like how peaceful my my outward expression is, you know, and what I've
Mm.
co-created. So
Mhm. Ha.
ah,
So, are there any last things that are coming forward that you want to share before we close today?
yes, I do want to share. One of the things that was so, I follow, you know, different things on the YouTube or whatever. And one of them is Magenta Pixie. I really think, you know, it resonates with I have a lot of astral or cosmic connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't really go into that. But the reason I went to Peru, because basically the spirits of Peru come in as spirits and they speak. So you could call them angelics, I don't know, but they fly and they show up, and, you know, this whole experience. So Magenta Pixie, you know, when I resonate with someone, and I usually resonate if they're balanced. So I've been, you know, doing the 7 Bomar secret energy, and a Magenta Pixie came forward around that time. I was in that dark night, and I realized that there's these energy forms, and I was talking about it on Saturday, and you could call them evil spirits. I think that they're energy forms, and some of them there's patterns and past stuff that you haven't examined. So they could come in as fear or guilt or shame, and it might not even be yours. But she shared this 3-part process, Magenta Pixie did. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to do this
Mm.
because it resonated so true for me. And I had gotten this sovereignty declaration, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to broadcast this sovereignty declaration so that I can be free. I don't want to put a dome on my freedom. I don't want freedom. I want free. And if there was any patterns that I had contracted to that I didn't, um, I don't, I don't, I want to null and void them. And I want to say that there are some things that, you know, people are going down conspiracy theories and all of this stuff. I have a lot of esoteric knowledge. So I'll just say that. I do not give it any energy, because I think you have to know about it, and then you have to say you do not consent to it.
Mhm.
So that 3-part process was like one of the biggest turning points, you know, ever. I mean, I don't even know. It was just this energetic thing. So when I read all of those, what I do not consent to, I became a sovereign being.
Mm.
So then I can tell if some kind of thing is coming in to try to attach to places that I don't even know I have a hook for.
Mm.
So this whole like waking up process, and if I can assist anyone in this waking up process, you know, a lot of light workers only want to stay in the light, and they don't want to know what goes on in the dark. They don't. But basically we have to know so that we do not consent to the distortions or the evil. And you have to wake up to that these things are really happening, and then you do not consent to it. But then you have to then, at the third piece of this, is you hold on to giving somebody the ability to change. And that means you hold on to their history. You do not hold on. So when you see somebody out in the world and they might have done something that you knew about that was wrong, you have to give them the opportunity to come into the light of their own remembering of who they are. And so you have to ho'oponopono them.
Mm.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And then you walk as a living miracle. You walk the living miracle so that you offer that to people, so that when, say that the world wakes up and then all of a sudden, what, us light workers are going to be judging the people that had been doing wrong, then we'll just have what we had before. We have to hold the balanced and wholeness of the vibration of saying, I do not consent to the evil or this distortion, but I hold them as a creator being coming forth in me, giving them the honor and the respect and saying to them, I love you for holding that opposite. I hold you for holding that so that I could wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And now I hold it for you to wake up out of this illusion that, you know, this distortion. And that I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for not seeing the divinity in you. I love you, but I do not consent to any of the evil or any of the things that I participated in to be a victim to it. So I got such freedom from it. That's why I wanted to share that. And if I could help anybody with coming into their own sovereignty, or, you know, I'm here. I'm just, you know, it's my highest joy to hold space for that. So that's all I had.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And I'll just share some kind of fun art with you.
Oh.
So
Is
you
it
know, it's sacred play.
Are they rattles or they're just
No, they're just little spirit sticks.
so sweet.
Little animals. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Mwah.
Thank you.
Love
And
you so much.
so if people want to learn more about you or hear the messages that you're sharing, where should they go? And I'll link it in the
Yeah,
YouTube comments as well.
I usually do my Facebook lives from Lori Henderson. If you look for Lori Henderson, you'll see a little rabbit as my profile picture, because it's about coming into the new world, is coming out of the old one. You have to, you know, wake up. So that Lori Henderson is one of the ways. Instagram, I'm Reclaim Belonging Studio. And then my website is www.reclaimbelonging.com. So those are the three ways. And then, you know, if you want to talk to me on the phone, I mean, it's like, phone number is on my website.
Perfect.
Reclaimbelonging.com.
Thank you so much. I love you. And
I love you.
maybe we'll collaborate again soon.
I would love that, Lindsay. Take good care.
Okay.